Amid the devastating war raging in the country, too much of Syria's cultural heritage is destroyed and continuing to be destroyed or looted. Islamic State's gained control of territories that are regarded as a cradle of civilization. There have been numerous reports of terrorists looting ancient sites across Syria on an industrial scale. They're using the money raised from sales of those artifacts to fund their ongoing jihad. Some items have been smuggled into Western countries, reportedly finding their way into public institutions, museums, private collections. To fight the illicit traffic, then the International Council of Museums has released a list of Syrian cultural objects at risk. Now, that includes examples of cultural items that are likely to be illegally sold, and it encourages museums as well and individuals and dealers not to buy them. For instance, the list contains this, where is it coming up? That limestone bust there. That was created, for instance, in the 3rd century AD, typical of the kind of artifact you get in Palmyra. Another one, this coin coming up with Cleopatra on the surface there. So rare, created in the period from approximately 40 years BC in Latakia. These are the kind of things that are going missing, being destroyed. Well, experts say there are unwritten rules when it comes to trading looted artifacts. Seems the more hands an object passes through, the more expensive then it becomes. Everyone's taking their cut. The initial price, in fact, might differ from the final one as much as 100 times. RT's Anastasia Churkina reports next, and from London, where some of this looted art has been turning up.
Antiques are big business in the British capital, with shops like this around every corner. So little surprise that blood-stained treasures from war-torn regions of the world make it to this market. With little paper trail left behind, pieces are brought in from Syria and sold here, with supply easily meeting demand. Experts say the scale of the problem is much wider than most might assume, with ISIS not just destroying historic sites, but also making a serious profit off the trade. We're meeting with an archaeologist to find out exactly what is available on the market here in London. Looking at these pieces, how do you as an expert know that you can assume this is recent and this is from Syria?
It's like buying a car. Just by looking at it, you can tell what's a British car versus an American car. So it's kind of like the same idea. You look at the shape, you look at the insignias, the kind of diagnostic features that tell you where it potentially is from. So that's the first step. You know it's coming from regions in which ISIS is operating. The second step is the much harder step, which is when did it come here? That's hard to determine. There's little to no documentation in them. Most of them don't even say absolutely anything.
How do you think realistically do they make it here?
These cylinder seals are the ones I find the most interesting. These are cylinder seals from, again, Iraq and Syria. You can tell by the shape. So here you can, the figures, for instance, the kinds of designs that are on there, the way in which the designs are actually carved into the stones. Enough diagnostic features to know objects that are coming, that they are certainly coming from the region which ISIS controls. So these are the kinds of things that are going to be of high demand, and in terms of looting, because they have a lot of value for their size, and also of interest from the Western market. You could put them in a pocket, basically. Maybe an amulet from, or a kind of necklace, as far as anyone's concerned in the customs. By the time it gets to here, it's too late, essentially. It's the chances of someone being seized, stopped, and prosecuted are almost zero. In the UK or anywhere in Europe, frankly. So the problem is really originating, the conflict zone, and if you can't stop it in the actual conflict zone, then it's basically too late. So you can see this is the mess that we have on our hands. The Met has something like 2.5 positions devoted to antiquities coming to the London region. Now, imagine London is one of the biggest markets in the world for antiquities, most likely. 2.5 people. Yeah, 2.5 positions. And we don't know how much ISIS is benefiting from these kinds of objects. We know they are benefiting, and we know it's coming to the West. That's indisputable. So whatever antiquities dealers tell us is just false. Now the question is what's the scale of it? And that's what we can't measure very easily. And this is just the legal stuff. This is the stuff we can find online. People basically don't know if they're funding ISIS or not. That's the bottom line. So that's the kind of scary thing, I think, is that we could be funding these groups without even knowing it.
Earlier this year, the UN Security Council put in place a ban on trading illegally obtained antiques from Syria and Iraq. But obviously no rules apply to ISIS. And with tracking the artifacts far from a priority for officials in countries where they end up, like the UK, the problem of death-stained antiques making it into Britain and elsewhere is yet to be efficiently addressed. Anastasia Churkina, RT, London.